My wife, to me, meant everything. To have died in a fire behind some weird stuff like this, I mean, this is not right. I mean, it's just, it's wrong. And then you try to find out why. This is why I'll just refer to him as my attorney. This is a man that he's not going to let him get away. He's not going to let him hurt my baby. The roughest conversation of my life was when I had to go. And my daughter said, "Papi, you've got to come and tell the kids. They're not going to hear it from me." And I had to go sit in front of all of our grandchildren and tell them that this wonderful grandma is gone.
We all go to bed at night with the reassurance that if a fire starts and smoke builds, we'll all be protected, especially if our home has a state-of-the-art fire alarm system. In this insider-exclusive Investigative Network TV special, Fire Alarm Safety, Lisa Sanders' Story, our news team visits with Keith Fletcher, partner at Simmons and Fletcher in Houston, Texas, who represents the Sanders family regarding the January 2nd, 2011 tragic death of Lisa Sanders, a beautiful mom of 3 and devoted wife of Tony Sanders. Unfortunately, there can be a deadly difference in what home fire and burglary monitoring companies promise and what they deliver, and that difference can be fatal, as was in the case of Lisa Sanders. Lisa was a home health care aide who took care of the elderly and sick folks in their home. After several years, she took care of Evelyn Worthington, a wealthy divorcee who was suffering from MS and wheelchair-bound. Mrs. Worthington's home was a Victorian mansion in the trendy Heights Boulevard area of Houston, Texas. She spared no expense in designing and building the house, including a state-of-the-art fire alarm system, not only for her own peace of mind, but also for her extraordinary multi-million-dollar doll collection. On the night of January 2nd, 2011, for reasons unknown, this magnificent mansion caught on fire and burned to the ground. The state-of-the-art fire alarm system never sent the on-fire message to the monitoring company, and the last recorded phone call from the house was this 911 call.
Houston Fire and Ambulance, what is the location of your emergency?
It's a fire!
Okay, what is the location, ma'am?
1135 Heights!
Okay, ma'am, we have emergency units already dispatched to the area, okay? Is this a house, apartment, or a business? Ma'am, hello? Hello, ma'am?
Lisa Sanders apparently came down from her upstairs room through the smoke and fire and attempted to rescue Mrs. Worthington. But the fire was so intense that it required 250 firefighters to subdue, and the inferno caused the home, a 2-story, 9,000-square-foot replica of a historic 1897 Queen Anne Victorian in Blacksburg, Virginia, to collapse. But tragically, neither Lisa nor Mrs. Worthington made it out alive. The fire department's dogs located Mrs. Worthington's remains within a day or two. It took longer to find Lisa. Based on the location of the bodies, Lisa died trying to get Mrs. Worthington into her wheelchair to escape the fire. The Houston Fire Department was never able to determine the cause of the fire. So why didn't the money-is-no-object, state-of-the-art fire alarm system work? And who's responsible for this expensive system failing and needlessly taking the lives of 2 very much loved people? That's what this case is all about, and Keith Fletcher is determined to get to the truth and justice for Lisa Sanders and her family. In this special edition of the Insider Exclusive, Keith Fletcher will share some very important discoveries that his firm has made so far, like the fire security alarm system was installed by an unlicensed installer recommended by the home builder. The state of Texas requires all fire security alarm installers to be licensed. When the installer installed the system, he notified the monitoring company dealer Triangle that the house needed remote monitoring. Triangle selected Counterforce, a large national monitoring company, to provide the off-premises monitoring services. In the event of a fire, the home alarm system was supposed to send a signal to Counterforce, and they were supposed to immediately contact the fire department and then the homeowner. Mrs. Worthington paid about $240 a year in advance for these monitoring services. But that never happened. No test signals were tested or sent out monthly as required by Texas law. Counterforce never programmed the Worthington account to receive a monthly test signal. Discovery revealed, much to everybody's surprise, that Counterforce does not follow this law. They claim that a homeowner has to pay extra for them to follow the law. They also claim that the law does not apply to them. Thousands of Counterforce residential accounts have been and are still at risk every day and have been for years. Tragically, nothing has been done by Counterforce to change their system and follow the law. Counterforce claims on their public website that Counterforce has dedicated itself to one vision: securing lives and providing peace of mind. And people and businesses everywhere trust our service and depend on our expertise to secure what is most valuable to them. Since 1988, Counterforce has dedicated itself to providing high-quality monitoring services to the families, homes, and businesses that are entrusted to our care by the independent alarm professionals who serve them. The change is an easy one to fix. Just a few keystrokes by Counterforce's data entry persons. Already, Counterforce's software provides such protection for commercial accounts, but they have to pay extra for the 24-hour test signal that is also required by law. The law requires that communication be established and maintained between the home and the central monitoring station. And homeowners are being lulled into a false sense of security when there is none. If the monitoring company does not look for the test signal and follow the law, there is nothing to protect homeowners from a communication failure between the home and the monitoring station. This case is still ongoing, and Keith Fletcher will also discuss some of the legal strategies, obstacles, and hurdles they must overcome to get justice for the Sanders family. Keith Fletcher has earned the highest respect from citizens and lawyers alike as one of the best trial lawyers in Houston, in Texas, and across the country. His goal is not only to get justice for his clients, but to make sure that everyone is treated with equal respect and dignity as guaranteed under the Constitution of the United States. He has built a substantial reputation by consistently winning cases other law firms have turned down. His amazing courtroom skills and headline-grabbing success rate continue to provide his clients with the results they need and the results they deserve. This is the Insider Exclusive, live from Houston, Texas. It is my great pleasure to introduce Keith Fletcher to the show. Welcome to the show, Keith.
Thank you.
Tell our audience a little bit about what kind of law your law firm practices.
We do 100% plaintiff's personal injury trial law. Simply put, that simply means is that we're representing people who are injured or who have lost loved ones in disasters, accidents, collisions, crashes, you name it. That's what we do.
It would be a lot easier to be a corporate lawyer, I think, working for IBM or representing IBM. And so why do you do what you do? This is a tough job.
That's a good question. And the best I can tell you is that years ago, I felt that this was my calling. I felt that this was the important thing to do, to stand up for the little guy, because he's the one who doesn't have a voice, the one that needs representation, and the one who needs someone like me to help them even the playing field.
Today we are here discussing a case which fits that mold perfectly, and it's the case of Lisa Sanders, and you're representing her husband. And tell our audience a little bit about who Lisa was.
Lisa Sanders was a woman, a grandmother, wife of Tony Sanders, who was a health aide to a lady by the name of Evelyn Worthington. And she was working in a home that unfortunately caught fire and burned. And the result was that she perished in that fire.
And your job is to find out why that fire happened. And we kind of pretty much know what happened, but you're digging even deeper in that, because what are some of the facts that you've discovered so far in this pending case?
Well, quite a few, actually. We have discovered everything except what was the cause of the fire. The Houston Fire Department investigated it, and after about 2.5 years determined that they could not determine the cause of the fire. It was not arson, it was not an accelerant, so we'll never probably know what the actual cause was. We can tell where the fire started, but that's about the extent of it. But what we have discovered is that these two women, one of which was disabled and needing care, constant care, these two women's lives could have been saved if certain things had happened as they were supposed to.
Right. The home was a Victorian home. It was very well built. They had the state-of-the-art fire alarm system.
That is correct.
But there are some problems with not only the installation and who installed it, but also the communication between the signaling company. Tell our audience a little bit about that,
Sure.
because that's really the crux of the issue here.
Sure. Mrs. Worthington was disabled. She also was very wealthy, so money was no issue here. She designed a home with her in mind. She had advanced stage MS, and so she needed to be able to have plenty of time to get out of a house in the event that there was a fire. So she bought and had installed a state-of-the-art electronic system that would communicate immediately to a central station monitoring company in the event there was a fire, and then immediately they would contact 911 and the Houston Fire Department so they could get over there and get that woman out quickly.
That never happened, did it?
Never happened. Never happened. Unfortunately, for the two women, the unit itself was installed probably improperly. But most importantly, what we discovered was that the law that deals with these systems requires there to be a communication link constantly between the home and the central monitoring station. Unfortunately, the central monitoring station, despite the law, did not keep and establish that communication link. And they didn't do it for between 13 and 24 months.
And why is that? Have you discovered that?
It is the policy of the central monitoring station that even though the law says you're supposed to keep this communication going, their interpretation of the particular statute was extremely, extremely conservative, with the end result being that they didn't communicate.
Yeah.
I know it sounds absolutely ludicrous, but literally they've recognized that the central monitoring station's requirements are, one, the home is required to send a signal every 30 days to the central station,
Right.
but they're not required to acknowledge receipt or non-receipt of it, even though on the commercial side they do that every 24 hours.
Yes. So basically what you have, and let's talk about this signaling company, is Counterforce, correct?
It's Counterforce.
Okay. Basically what they're saying is that there are two types of clients that we have.
Right.
One residential, two commercial.
Correct.
For the commercial accounts, we will automatically include this state-required testing that goes on every 30 days.
No, every 24 hours.
24 hours. But for the residences, we can have an alarm put in your house, but you got to pay us extra in order to communicate, have this continuous communication to protect the home, right?
Correct. And look, if Mrs. Worthington, who money was no object, had been advised of this, that if she would have been paying extra money for this special supervisory skills, don't you think she would have paid for it?
Sure.
Just like that?
Yeah.
But she didn't. Probably because, one, that she was never told that, and then they also never followed up on it as
Yeah.
the law requires.
I want it to be known that this policy that Counterforce has is a policy that puts in jeopardy thousands of homes in Houston, correct?
That is correct.
Because if they don't pay extra money, their alarms are not being tested regularly,
Well, it's
correct?
not just that. It's not that they're not, it's not just not paying extra money. They're not being told this.
Yeah.
People are not being told that there is a particular law that protects them,
Sure.
and this particular company, unlike other companies throughout the United States, doesn't follow this law, and it puts in jeopardy these folks.
Every other company provides this, except Counterforce, is that right?
The ones that we have talked to, the ones we have specifically talked to say, yes, we do the 30-day monitoring. Whether you like it or not, you're going to get it.
Yeah.
And some of them charge, some of them don't charge for it, but they read the statute that the best practice to protect the consumer
Right.
is going to be, let's do the 30-day signal.
Okay, today we have with us Tony Sanders, Lisa's husband. So let's bring him on right now. It is my great pleasure to introduce Tony Sanders to the show. Welcome to the show, Tony.
Thank you.
Tell our audience, you know, when you first learned of what happened with your wife, what went through your mind?
Oh, my disbelief.
Yeah.
I couldn't.
You were told in the morning, was that it?
Yeah, I had taken her the day before and was scheduled to, you know, go through our normal routine.
Right.
And I received a call, I don't know, 8, 9, I don't know what time that morning. And the lady that we worked with through the agency that my wife worked for said, haven't you heard? I said, what do you mean, what have I heard? She said, you've not heard? I said, what? She said, there was a fire at the Worthingtons. I went, oh my goodness. Is everybody okay? She says, Tony, I'm trying to figure out some kind of way to tell you. I said, my wife, where is she? You know, you're a buddy. I'm sure you guys worked something out to where she's somewhere I can get her or she's safe somewhere. She said, Tony, she didn't make it. And I, what do you mean she didn't make it? And then things kind of went black. I mean,
Yeah.
I didn't believe it. I just
Yeah.
couldn't believe it.
Your wife took care of Mrs. Worthington for about 6 years, right?
Yes.
And she was basically, she really couldn't do anything for herself, could she?
No, she was pretty much confined to the little portable wheelchair.
Yeah. They were not only working together, or she was working for her, but they were pretty good friends, weren't they?
Oh, yes.
Yeah, I mean, she must have talked to her, she was with her, what, 12 hours a day?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, they liked being together.
Yeah.
And it was work, but to them, it was like fun.
As a result of the investigation that's still ongoing, you've discovered certain things about possibly how this could have been prevented, and that's what Keith's firm is involved with. What do you have to say to America? What do you have to say to any fire alarm company about what they should do to protect people's lives?
Well, this kind of thing, especially when it comes to people like Lady Worthington, they're not asking people for favors, they're not asking you for discounts, they're not asking you for anything except what you say you're going to deliver, what they're trying to purchase from you. And they get comfortable. My wife got comfortable. They think these guys are doing what they're saying that they're doing. And to find out that they're not, that's I probably shouldn't say what I'm thinking right now when it comes to that. America should know these companies that are saying that they're doing these things, do them. I mean, I dropped my wife off at this place. She did her job. Lady Worthington spent her good money, not asking anybody for discounts or anything else. Just give her what she paid for. Do what you say you're going to do.
You need to hold somebody accountable.
Yeah, he told me one morning, it was just like a case and an attorney and a client and da-da-da. And he says, do you understand what happened? Don't you see what's going on here, Tony? I said, I tried to tell you the other day that a lady found out and she printed it. He said, she's a hero. He said, your wife didn't have to die.
Right.
She could have gotten out of there. I said, yeah, when I found that out, it busted me up real bad. But I told him, I said, we loved Lady Worthington too much. She couldn't have left her.
Yeah.
She wouldn't have left her.
Well, my condolences to you, and I want to thank you very much for being on this show, and we know this is going to turn out successful. Keith, how do you select your clients and your cases? You get lots of people contact you. How do you pick them?
Well, first of all, we listen to them. We verify their facts. We do a preliminary investigation. And then if the facts and what the client is telling us mesh, then we take that case. Again, it has to involve reasonable damages or extensive damages. In this particular case, there was a death involved.
Sure.
So definitely it's one we wanted to take another look at, which we did. And we decided that this was one that needed to be pursued.
Yeah, because there is not only her situation, but there's thousands of other homes out there that could be in jeopardy.
Absolutely.
I want to thank you very much for being on the show.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks for joining us. You can get more information about our guest and the issues at insiderexclusive.com.